So
Welcome, everybody, to our New Thought Dialogue, where we have typically a new speaker every month. And today we're lucky to have one of our newest participants, Trisha Mitchner, and I will um, let her speak, describe who she is. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. And I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this learning conversation. It's fairly informal, as you will see, but we leave it up to the host for the month to organize it however they like, pretty much. So I'll be quiet now and welcome Trisha Mitchner, who I'm looking forward to learning about her coaching experience and teaching experience.
sure. Thank you. Thanks, Leroy. So this is a nice intimate group, Lucille and Amalia. And for those of you who are watching the recording, certainly I'll give as much as if you were here, as much content as I can. But with smaller groups, it's nice to bounce back and forth. So Lucille certainly and Leroy, unmute yourselves when you want to chat, and let's make this a conversation. And ultimately, that's what it is. I'll talk a little bit here and there, but if you have questions as I go, and we'll open up some space to be able to share different thoughts. When Leroy asked me to do this, I had been on the call. My first call on this group was with Mark Fournier. Is that how you say his last name? Fournier, correct? Okay. Yeah, he was wonderful, and he brought up this term of metacognition. And so, Lucille, can you tell me what metacognition means to you?
Well, meta means large, and cognition is your ability to um, perceive or to receive information.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, large is interesting, and that's very true. Awareness of our thoughts. To me, it's awareness of our thoughts, right? But on a grand level. It's the way that we think about our thoughts. And Mark did a really nice job about, and I don't know if you saw that, Lucille, his recording from that, but he did a really nice job of explaining kind of, I loved his analogy about being on the light train or the dark train. And like when you realize the thoughts that you're having that are keeping you on the dark train, it's like, how do you kind of jump over onto the light train to make things a little bit lighter, to release whatever you need to release to move forward and whatnot. But he talked a lot about the brain, which he has so much knowledge and wisdom in. And he talked about how neurons that fire together will wire together. And so I wanted to expand on the metacognition a little bit more in this talk today. And I'm curious your thoughts around expanding it, not only the thoughts, but understanding the thoughts and how they are related to the emotional capacity of a person and the emotional agility that you have, or the emotional intelligence that's there, that also is cognitive or not cognitive, right? It's either unconscious or conscious, and there's constantly that's going on. So I was hoping to bring some of what I teach to leaders. I teach leadership. I have a program called the Energetics of Leadership that I teach to professionals, usually on a one-on-one capacity, but also in a group setting. And I've done that for the past about 7 years. And then also from a neurolinguistics background, which I'm a practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. So I'll explain a little bit about what that is and how it relates, because I think it'll all kind of come together really nicely in terms of kind of piggybacking what Mark had discussed last month. Um, Before I get started, was there anything that like you thought about, Leroy, from last session that came up for you in terms of metacognition this past month that you wanted to share?
I don't have anything huge on my agenda. I feel like it was a huge amount of information that I wasn't able to absorb it all. So it's kind of why I keep coming back, is to get a little better understanding of some of these principles.
Terms and
But
yeah.
I'm personally just working with kind of I feel like I've reached a point where I know a lot of facts and I've got a lot of information, but I almost feel like I'm to the point where I really don't know anything. Or there's so much that I still need to learn, and kind of want to get rerouted in what are the things that are important to me, and what do I really know? What do I want to know? And just rethinking my outlook a little bit on life. So
I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's a great intention for today, and I'm sure you'll get some clarity there. Lucille, what was your intention in coming in today, or do you have anything in terms of the topic that comes to mind right away that you might be able to?
I was just curious more than anything else.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, let's jump into some of this. I mean, I have some material that I'm just going to share in hopes that it adds some value to this group. Can you see my screen here?
Hmm.
yes.
Okay, I did this presentation for the Adult Learning Institute in Chelsea, Michigan, where I'm from. They have a senior center there, and that's where I learned to play pickleball, actually, Leroy. And so my mom introduced me to pickleball. And so I started, playing at the senior center, and I got to know those people pretty well. And they had a lot of opportunities for the senior center there. And one of them was having speakers like myself come in and just talk about random topics. They had a fishing one, they had me coming in to talk about neurolinguistics a little bit. And so it's kind of fun. So this kind of goes really well with what we're talking about here. So the neurolinguistic programming, the neuro means neurological processes, right? So the neurological processes that are going on in the brain that are firing and wiring um, energy through your brain, right? And so the neurons that fire together wire together. I'm sure you've heard that a number of times before. And I look at that as like you have a physiological response to language. And so that's where the language and the linguistic piece comes in, is because even the thoughts that we tell ourselves internally is language. And that language creates a neurological process. There's a neurological process for every pathway that you think, every single thought that you think comes with a set of neurological processes. And then the programming side of that, what that means is the acquired behavioral patterns that adapt from those thoughts that create neurological paths in your brain, right? That fire and wire together. And oftentimes they become really strong over time, right? I kind of look at it as like a telephone cable. A lot of times we have these telephone cables that are really strong because over time we've worked that same thought and that same emotional pattern attached to the thought and then the same behavior, and it keeps repeating itself over and over and makes it very strong. So sometimes that's really positive for us because there are things that we're really honed in on, like accountability or discipline or things of that nature where you're really strong in that. And other times there's pathways that are not really serving us, that are more limiting to us, that may have served us for a time. And because of that, it's a really strong cable. But now in this next stage of our life, it just doesn't really fit the stage that we're in. So we keep trying this same pattern, usually unconsciously, until it's conscious, and then we can change it. We can choose to change it. So we're kind of like unlearning things to then relearn things, if that makes sense. And for the physiological body, that's really important. So the four pillars of NLP are outcomes, sensory acuity, which is like your how acutely and aware you are of your senses, because everything external to us comes in to one of our senses, and that's what a stimulus is, right? So we see something, we hear something, we touch something, we smell something, and or we hear something, or we even sense something. For some people, have a very high sensing um, kind of sixth sense, like mediums and people like that. Musicians a lot of times have that as well, Leroy. I don't know if you kind of feel that, but you can feel people's energy really well. And that's like a sensing thing. You don't really hear it or see it or touch it, but you can sense it really well. Um, in in this work, we call that you have your auditory, your olfactory, and your auditory. The one that's the sensing piece is the auditory digital, we call it. So that's kind of a sense that typically people don't really know about, and it's interesting to learn about. Um, so the next part is the behavioral change. So anytime I'm doing coaching with any type of client, whether it's a leader or just a person, that wants to learn more about their mind and their body and communication and how that works. Behavioral change is an important aspect of that, obviously. It's like, what are the things that we want to change at this stage, and how do we use this knowledge and this data and information and research to then make some changes that are going to open up opportunities for us, help us to feel better, create better well-being, better relationships, all of the above. The last one is rapport, and rapport is a really important part of this. It's how do we relate to others, and how do we build trust? Trust and rapport kind of are the same in my eyes and what I teach. So trust is a very interesting sensation in the body. We know when we don't trust something, usually, and our intuition will usually flare up if that's the case. And I look at intuition differently than a fear-based response. So a fear-based response is doesn't really feel great. It's more alarming, right? But an intuitive hit is like it just kind of nudges you. It's like, oh yeah, that's the right thing, or oh no, that doesn't feel right there. So intuition and fear-based response, how you build trust over time is like learning what that means for you and how to build rapport with other people, etc. But what I loved about Mark's talk was the metacognitive piece. And like I said, what I wanted to bring today was like the emotional intelligence. So to understand your thoughts better is going to help you over long term, just in your own lives. So I figured this could be helpful. So the thoughts create feelings, right? So we have about 70,000 thoughts per day, is what research shows. And we're not always conscious of those thoughts clearly. When you're driving and you see somebody kind of speed up next to you, you automatically do what you need to do to stay safe in the car. And you may think thoughts to yourself in that moment, but are you really fixating on that thought and putting awareness to that thought? Not necessarily, but then it passes, right? And we allow those things to pass. Oftentimes, though, we are attaching to a thought. So we go from seeing something or somebody saying stimulus comes in, we hear someone say, "Gosh, you're crazy," and we attach to that thought, and then we stew on it. And the more that we focus on that thought, the bigger it becomes, the more sensation we feel in the body, the more the neurons are firing to then focus on that thought. And so your ability to shift the metacognitive piece of thought and how much attention you put to something is what's going to allow you to be more emotionally intelligent, because as soon as the thought comes up, we attach an emotion to it. So that comes from our past experiences, potentially past lives, depending on what you believe, our ancestors. There's a lot of research around generational impact of feelings and emotion and that emotional state. People who have been there's a lot of research on Holocaust, people that were in the Holocaust and their families following some of that trauma and the responses, the physiological responses that their bodies have from past trauma and ancestrally. So this goes in like very deep, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds. And if anything comes up, please pop in and share your thoughts. I mean, I guess that's a good time to pause. I mean, is what comes up for you guys here?
Molly and I just spent 7 days in New York, and we drove out together, drove back together, spent a lot of time together, and
Mhm.
it was interesting to sort of experience as um, not just Molly, my daughter, but also my son and my other family members. There was a lot of past um, baggage, if you will, or past shared experience, and it was just interesting to sort of process some of the emotions and from a new perspective, a year later, um,
Yeah,
and see a little bit more emotional intelligence in processing things rather than maybe traditional response, attack defense mode that sometimes we slip into.
knee-jerk response is what I call that. It's like automatic. We're not really in control of it because it's so strong. That's that cable that I'm talking about, is the neurological cable is so strong that when we see or hear something or talk about a particular event, it fires. And so a lot of people on social media and stuff use the word trigger a lot, and that is what it is. It triggers you in a way, but I feel like that term is relatively overused. But
That was quite pleasant to sort of realize that we've evolved a little bit and,
congratulations.
enjoy each other's company for longer periods of time.
That's awesome. Good.
I
Wow.
don't know if Molly agrees on that, and I know she's just listening in and driving, so I don't want to distract her. But if you have anything you want to add, Molly, feel free to share or subtract.
What
I'm
comes up
Can
pretty,
next?
you
I'm,
can you
I'm
guys hear
pretty,
me?
Yeah,
yeah,
we can.
Oh, cool. You're coming through my car. No, I don't have anything to necessarily add or subtract, but I think you're right, Dad, and I'm still like formulating how um that might relate to the NLP stuff, but I find this all really interesting. I love that. Um, One of the things that I've heard in the past I really love is once we become aware of a pattern, it's like already kind of on its way out, and like the awareness itself is like you're already 99% of the way there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might relate of just like, oh, I'm noticing that I've reacted in this way, or I'm noticing that I'm having this knee-jerk reaction, and that awareness itself is such a powerful shifting point. So I'll just share that. But yeah, I love everything that's being shared, so thank you for sharing it.
Great. Yeah, of course. No, that's a great addition right there. Lucille, how about for you?
I'm pretty familiar with this whole process, the thoughts going to feelings and feelings affecting behavior and the whole circle, so cyclical uh, process of it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's
wonderful.
nothing new for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, I'm always curious what people, I wasn't sure what level people were on in terms of this information, but yeah, if you have more things that you can add on to here, or experiences you've had, please, by all means.
Okay.
So some of the things, I don't know how familiar you are with these, Lucille, but there's some principles of the mind that I thought would be good to share. I won't go through probably, well, maybe we will end up getting through most of them, but some of them are pretty clear and they make sense. Like when you are, anything that you've experienced kind of goes in this. I look at, remember the old library cards that you pull out and everything's kind of organized. And I look at that as like all of the experiences that we've ever had are in this kind of library of memory, right? So the unconscious mind stores all of your memories, and it's not really conscious until it's conscious, right? So that feeling of having, somebody comes to your mind while you're sitting in the car one day and you're like, oh, I haven't thought of that person in a long time. That's your whether you look at it as the soul body or something signaling you, God, creator of all that is, or something signaling that like, hey, this person is coming up to me for a reason, and maybe that's not your thought, and that's okay. But to me, I look at that as a signal. I don't just bypass it. I either reach out to that person or I think deeper about that person, what that really means in this moment. But you have a memory bank, and that memory bank can go even generationally and even past lives. And there's a lot of research on kids who start to talk about the person that they once were in a past life. And they end up doing the research and finding that that person actually existed and they were in World War II and this, da, da, da. And like they're able to recall things, which is really fascinating to me. And I can talk about that here. Normally, I don't talk about that with, my clients because it goes a little into the what some would look at as woo-woo side of things, but something to really deepen into maybe another time. Um, the unconscious mind will repress memories with unresolved negative emotion, and that's one to really pay attention to. It's like when things are triggering from the past and they're still coming up today. That's something to really look into in terms of healing. And it will do that to spur you to action, to like, hey, this is here. Like Amalia said, it's conscious now, and maybe there was a pattern. Then we can break that cycle because it's in a cycle and it needs to be cut. So that's what we're looking for there. It runs the body, right? It has a blueprint of perfect health, which is really interesting when you think about your body knows exactly what perfect health is. And I know there are some on this call, or at least on the last call, there were some health concerns going on, which we will all go through, I would imagine at some point, maybe not, but um, it's good to understand that the body always has a perfect blueprint of what positive well-being feels like and is. It maintains instincts and generates habits. So back to creating that pattern of things, like you can probably jump on a bike at this stage and just go without having to think the thought to do it, right? So that unconscious pattern of behavior is what creates habitual behavior and also instinctual behavior. One of the most important ones on this page is probably that the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So you can have a vision, a future vision of what you want your life to look like, and you can close your eyes and experience the feelings, which is an important part beyond mantras. And um, I'm always encouraging my clients to go beyond just the mantra and rehearsing mantras to themselves to actually connect the feeling of the thought to that they want to have, not the one that they don't. Because when you create the feeling, that's what will start to hardwire new neural pathways into the mind to be able to start to shift those past thoughts or past behaviors that you're now trying to kick into gear, or you're trying to envision, a more um, maybe a new partner into your life or something like that. So if you have the sensation in your body of what that feels like, the brain doesn't know whether that was in the past, the present, or the future. It's right now, and it's happening as if it's right, as, as if it already happened. And so a lot of Joe Dispenza's work is around that particular part of this presentation today. It also doesn't process negatives, which is really important to know. So if I said, don't think about a blue tree, you can't not think about a blue tree. So the amount of times I used to own and operate gyms when I lived in New Jersey. We had 5 locations, and I've been through hundreds and thousands of consultations with new gym members. And what I learned over time is that the patterning of the thought is actually, and certainly the belief system, like there's only certain people that I can help. The belief system that health is a priority has to be so strong, because those thought patterns then create the behavior and the new habitual well-being pieces that this person's going to have with us for sometimes years. I mean, I have clients that have been there since we opened in 2013 that are still there today. But when I would have someone come in, they would say, I don't want to eat at night anymore. I don't want to be overweight. I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to. And those are all the things that the brain can't necessarily process the not of. So all it hears is I'm overweight, 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 overweight. I don't want to be overweight. All it hears is overweight, overweight. And you're signaling that to the physiology in the body, which is then creating an even stronger network. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So it's important to make sure that it's good to know what we don't want. It's also important to attach what we do want to that. So if it's not overweight, what is it? Well, I want to feel leaner. I want to feel good in my clothes. I want to feel good when I look in a mirror, or what have you. And then the last one here is that it's symbolic, right? Like we can get to the grocery store without having to think about how to get to the grocery store, right? So the brain works on symbols. It's looking at certain landmarks to be able to navigate places, for instance. And so that's really important to know too, because you might have symbols of things. Like I did a sisterhood program in the embodiment world, the feminine masculine embodiment space, for a number of years, and we created an altar in our homes. That was one of our projects, was to create an altar in the home and put objects and symbols of things that really brought us a lot of joy, things that brought us like a spiritual connection, or when something that would actually be more preemptive. So like I would set out, before I met my husband Anthony, I would set out a place setting at my table in my home as if my husband was already there. And so that was a really amazing thing for me, because I had to show up differently in my own home space as if I already had a husband that I was able to connect with and interact with. And so my own habits and things of like eating really fast and like those types of things kind of fell apart. And I got out of those old habitual things of just living by myself and was calling in something different. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
All right, I will pause there. Do any of these stand out to you, or what comes to mind here?
I love this list. What a nice collection and resource.
Yeah, absolutely. You can send it to people. I mean, they'll have it in the recording, but
I thought about the statement you made about on your altar putting things that bring you joy, and I never thought of it in that way before. It was always, put an angel or a rock or something that was meaningful to you, but not necessarily something that brings joy. That was eye opening for me, I guess.
wonderful. Good
Yeah.
nugget. Yeah, we also, I mean, I'll share another that we did. Another kind of project that we did on our own was we were assigned to, and I will grant my coach I will honor her here and just share with her. Her name is Sandy Sembler. She owns, it's called, it changed recently. Ah, I'm gonna have to, maybe I'll be able to send the link and so you can look her up. But she's out of Florida. And I met her she's a high performance coach just as I am. We're both certified through Brennan Burchard for the Certified High Performance Coaching Program. So I met her at one of our mastermind events and we became really good friends, and then she became my coach. But she had us put together, like, basically, Lucille, a list of all the things that have ever brought you joy. And it's a very interesting project. I actually make my clients go through this process and they usually hate it because they can't get past like 10 or 11 things, but I ask them to do 50. And I ask them to do 50 for a reason, because it really forces your brain to look even deeper into your childhood and middle school, high school, college, all the way through your entire life of what are the things that used to really trigger joy and like a sense of just pure connection. And so you make a list of all of those things and like silly things too. Like, I enjoy a Starbucks Frappuccino. It's my weak point. I love it, especially when it's really hot. So lately I've been going to get a Starbucks Frappuccino, but that's something that just, I love the taste and the texture of it. And so I write that on my list, right? So things that bring you joy. And then you put that into a little pot. And every day, whatever one you pull out, and it's going to be random, you have to do the thing on that day. And so this is like basically like a 60-day thing of going through and until they're gone, maybe 50 days. But you basically go through and every day do something that brings you joy. And it can be the smallest of things, or it can be a larger kind of act. Or if it brings you a ton of joy to give a gift to someone, then you come up with a silly little gift to send to someone that day, right? It could be so many things, but just a really good way to trigger the emotion in the body, right? And because the more that you rehearse the emotion, just like when you study for a test, the more it's going to come to you when you need it the most. And that's what we're trying to do in this work. It's just a constantly higher vibration, higher frequency, getting up to this peace, joy, and love place where it's very high frequency. Um, yeah, and I'll share the next thing I will share. We'll go more into that, but
Yeah, I love that. Thank you.
absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. And then this will be kind of the last thing, and then we can go into some just questions to ponder and see where this stuff kind of comes up for you guys. It's funny. I had a client reach out to me this morning. She's a good friend now. I no longer work with her, but she pulled me into Michigan medicine. That's how I got the connection. That's why I've worked with so many healthcare workers in this work. And she texted me last night this link showing this exact thing, and I was like, "Oh, that's a synchronistic thing. Like, I'm actually going to be showing this to the group today because she knows what this is." So this is the emotional scale. If anybody follows Abraham Hicks, I mean, there's so many people that have this, and this is like a well-known thing. What's not on this emotional scale is the frequency attached to the emotion. Some of them are going to be a little bit different. You'll find different emotions within the space, but for the most part, this is pretty much where it's at. So I'm just going to break this down for you, so in hopes that it brings some more emotional intelligence in terms of where you're at on this scale to be able to shift to the next level more intentionally and more consciously. Um, the frequencies, like I said, are not on here. There's not a number to each frequency, but what you need to know is that down here in this bottom, I don't like that it says negative. I actually changed this at one point. I think I have the wrong one up. It should say limiting emotions because I don't really love the term positive, negative. There's expansive and abundant, and then there's limiting emotions. And shame is the lowest vibration, the lowest frequency emotion. Okay, so that you can literally, if you're a sensation person like I am, like you can walk into a room, and even if you're not, if you walk into a room and someone is in deep shame, you can usually feel it without them having to say anything. Especially if you come in at a higher frequency, right? You come in having a great day and you walk in and your spouse is just in a place of just not great feeling, right? And so there's a frequency with that. Now there's also, as you go into this middle ground, this neutral place, you go higher and higher, you get to higher frequency emotions. So peace, joy, love, freedom are the highest frequency emotions. It's where you can access this like blissful feeling, right? This, and some people only experience that a couple times in their life of just pure intoxication, right? And so it's important to understand that they come with a vibration, and that whatever vibration you're at is what you're also going to attract. Okay, so if you are in a mode of frustration, irritation, impatience, how many times have you been rushing to get somewhere only to find that the next light is a stoplight, next light is a stoplight, somebody cuts you off, you get pulled over, right? You're just kind of going through this energetic phase, and it keeps presenting itself into that same phase. Or someone else that is also in a state of frustration is probably going to resonate with that frequency. And we will say out loud, verbally, in language, that person resonates with me, right? And that's because they're in tune with where you're at. It feels right. Their vibration is the same, and you kind of fit. Now that's whether you're in frustration or whether you're in love, right? So you can kind of feel the sensation of that. So like, what is the point here? I mean, the point is to feel good, right? We want to feel good in our body, we want to feel good in our mind, we want to feel good emotionally. So why not utilize this as a tool to always know that you can always come back. If you're in the bottom category here, you can always get to neutral, because you're never going to jump from shame all the way up to peace, joy, love, and freedom in an instant, right? That's not going to happen. But you can at least get up to doubt. You can get up to irritation. You can move on the ladder a little by little to get to a higher state, to the point that you can actually, when you're in a contentious conversation with your spouse, for instance, how do you need to get to that middle ground before you actually have the conversation? It's like if you're in blame and anger and discouragement, you're not really going to be able to have the best conversation because your blinders are on to that emotion. So why not take a break from one another? Let's revisit this in 10 minutes, go on a walk, do something that's going to bring you back to neutrality before you move forward.
How does this relate to right brain and left brain?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me think about that. How does this relate to right brain,
I
left?
mean, could you generally say that the higher vibrations come from right brain
I
and the
don't
lower
know that.
ones?
I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. Can you tell me what right brain and left brain mean to you?
Well, the right brain to me it means that you're in tune with your higher self,
Okay.
and your left brain is your analytical, um, trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
Your
Logistical.
ego is in the left brain.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. I mean,
which
I think that you
to
could
me, I thought
probably,
it makes sense.
yeah, I mean, I don't know as if they're different, because I feel like you could be in a place of impatience, and whether that affects your right brain or left brain, I don't know that. I feel like that would be a good question for Mark because he's more of the doctor in that category in terms of psychology. He
Mhm.
might be able to answer that question a little bit differently. So I'm going to write that down actually and see if he can't chime in on that. So the next thing is of this is the spiral piece, which we talked about a little bit earlier, but the reason that it's a spiral is that it can spiral and get bigger and bigger the more that we focus on it, right? So um, when we are in deep appreciation, we can get to that joy piece pretty easily if we focus on the appreciation part of it. Like it can come and it can grow and it can get higher and higher. Same is true with the bottom part. You can be in a place of worry and blame and very easily go into a state of fear and grief. Especially, I mean, we talk about cognitive distortions a lot in my work, three main ones, which are one of them is I call it catastrophizing. So it's, you see this a lot in little kids where they focus on something, or even in, I look back to like my college days or high school days where like when I feel like I did really bad on a test and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fail this test. I'm going to flunk out of high school. I'm never going to get into a college. I'm never going to make money. And you just go into this, right? So the more that you focus on it, the more it becomes and the more it spirals out of control. Like how many can relate? Okay, good. What was the last thing here? So I'm curious, like, how do other people, because I'm always learning too, I want to know what do other people do to get to neutral? What do you do to get to that middle ground when you're in that state of limiting feeling?
I've recently been getting into the Shar material, and I'm not sure everyone
I
is,
don't,
but
I'm not familiar with that.
Bashar.
Okay.
But his kind of formula or secret, if you will, is like look for the better feeling thought.
Mhm.
And I think that very much relates to this, is like find a next thought up the ladder, and that will naturally take you to um, this higher vibration. So I think it resonates really well with this Abraham material, Abraham has been transformative for me. So it's neat that you shared it.
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. What about for you, Lucille? What do you do when you're,
Doesn't happen to me very often anymore. It's just kind of interesting, but um, I think when I allow myself to feel the feelings, and then I just gradually come to a point of acceptance
Hmm.
about the whole thing and let it go.
Do you have certain thought processes or language that you tell yourself while you're in that phase?
Um, there's thoughts like, how's this going to affect you in 50 years? And
Mm,
how, you know, how does this relate in the bigger picture and that kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah.
And that's a great point to make. I have to ask to myself often because I am getting better and better at writing emails, certain emails regarding certain topics where I go into, in the past, I've gone into like a perfectionism. It's got to come off the right way, and I will spend way too long on one email, right? And so I ask myself the same question now is like, in 10 years, am I going to remember this? And is it just good enough as it is and just send it, right? It's like just
Yeah.
get on with it and move forward. So that's been very helpful for me in that regard.
Not on a side note, I don't want to distract from the immediacy of this, but Molly, what was the name of the person who you mentioned the other day who uses Abraham as a teacher? If you can respond,
Um, I'm not sure who you're thinking of, Dad.
the guy that we listened to for 45 minutes.
Oh, David Bayer is his name. I'm not super familiar with him, but I just found his YouTube videos recently and I've enjoyed them.
I was curious if Trisha may have heard of him because I thought he
No,
was
but I'm
very
writing it
articulate.
down. Yeah, I'm writing it down. I'll definitely take a look.
I love the simplicity of this advice, and practicing it has been a challenge. I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it's a matter of focus and open to other people's suggestions of how do they stay in tune with that when they have fallen off the high vibration,
Yeah. I
or
mean,
get back onto it. And go ahead.
and get back on, yeah, get back onto it. Um, I mean, there's certainly experiences that you have in life that are harder than most, like losing your mom, for instance. I lost my mom last year. Um, on the July 31st was a year. And so looking back at like the process of that, it was not just losing my mom though. It was a pretty not to go into too much story because ultimately the story doesn't matter, but to give you context, like my dad was going through chemotherapy and I was his person, so I was taking him to that for prostate cancer while my mom passed away. My dog of 13 years had passed away, my grandfather passed away. I got married, became a stepmom, and became a wife, and moved locations into a new home
Oh my goodness.
all in the same year. So you'd call it a midlife crisis because that's what it was.
Yeah.
The universe
Yeah.
was like, we're just gonna pile all of this shit on you right now and see how you do. And it took me a good long time. It took me a solid year to say that I have been able to transition to a more positive place, go into a place of acceptance. But that did not just come, right? So looking back at the things that I did, like, because that's what we're talking about, like immediately, because I work about 90% remotely in my home in Weberville, which is pretty far from most things, I was by myself way too much for the state of my mental health. And like, I know myself pretty well. I'm pretty self-aware. And so I knew that I needed to be around positive people and I needed to be around people more often. So I actively went to Playmakers and got a part-time job because I knew that even if I went in once per week, it would give me that like brief brain break from all the things that were coming up for me when I'm by myself to focus on other people, have somebody, because I've been leading myself since 2013. I've been self-employed for a long time. So I constantly am leading myself, but to have somebody else just tell me what to do it brought so much relief to my brain. I wasn't going there for the money, right? Like I was just going there to get some relief in my brain to kind of counter with that limiting versus abundant thought processing and get part of my day to at least be around the positivity that we all know at Playmakers is there, as from being a customer there for so long. So anyway, I would do things like that in the harder times. But then, you have a support network, and I'm always asking my clients, like, who's seated at your table at this stage? Because every stage calls for a different people to be seated at your table. Some people leave, some people come in. So, I look at all the people at my table, my best friend, my best friends, my accountant, even my financial planner. We're making a lot of changes to our house and investing in our house a lot right now. So there's people that are helping me make major decisions right now and supporting me in that. And in that journey, at one point it was my sisterhood group. That was like so influential to have them seated at my table. And I still have one that I meet with to do movement practice every month. So, I look forward to that time to be with her. And, we meet on Zoom because she's in Florida. But anyway, there's some examples there. It's a little vulnerable to share all that, but I hope that gives you some ideas.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. I've lost a lot of friends at my age. That's a typical thing. A lot of people die and leave, and you have to create new friendships.
Yes,
So, yeah.
yes, very true. Yeah, every stage is it's quite unique. Well, I mean, I won't share too much more here because I'm curious what other things are coming to mind or what kind of questions do you have? Um, and ultimately, uh, what I wanted to kind of end on was like all this work that we're doing on our own metacognition and our own emotional intelligence, like how does overlaying this like a spiritual connection actually magnify or not that? To me, it magnifies it incredibly in a very positive way to have a spiritual connection overlaid with my meditations and my the what's the word I'm looking for? The altar that I've created, or whatever the case may be. And what I find from working with so many clients is that the highest performing clients that I've ever worked with, um, they have a very strong connection to spirit in whatever form it comes to them, whether it's through religion, Catholicism, Catholic, what Christianity, whatever it is for them, versus a more universal approach where you're connected to a creator of all that is, and you're more soul connected, like whatever that is for you. I'm just curious how you feel that's helped or not helped in terms of you getting better at your own thoughts and emotions.
Lately, I've been trying to put meditation into my life on a daily basis, and I've really not so much a try. It's been more of a desire, and feel very much a novice. But I think the meditation is a piece of that. And maybe it's not so much about doing as it is like undoing, and like creating space for quiet um, reflection, but also for inspiration to sort of bubble up. And when I'm sort of in the busy mind mentality, I sometimes lose that peaceful center
Mhm.
that I enjoy by carving out time for quiet time and meditation, but conscious reflection versus just blind quietness.
Right.
Um,
What kind of, I mean, how do you go about your meditation practice? Do you use like a guided meditation? Do you just sit in silence, like walk?
I think my go-to is just 20 minutes of silence and just watch my mind settle down a little bit. And I
Whatever it does, yeah. Hmm.
maybe 8% of the time I might achieve that more deep quietness, but the 8% is worth it. Um,
Totally.
but I often get distracted fairly quickly. So I don't know. I'd be interested in hear other people's ways of how do they find that spiritual connection or that connected, peaceful state.
Sure. How do you go about it, Lucille?
Well, I think of it as right brain, left brain. Um, I think of, and I can definitely go into my right brain and make a choice to stay there.
Mhm.
Um, and then when doubts come or any of the other stuff, know that that's just the left brain jumping in,
Sure.
and so I just try to stay in my right brain as much as possible.
It's an art and a practice, isn't it? It
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
from it from
definitely. It's taken me a few years to get to that point.
it's a
But
journey that goes on forever, in my opinion. It's not something that you just get to it and you're like, oh, this is great. I'm just here all the time. It's like, no.
yeah,
I mean, you're certainly in it
you
more
get kicked out of it every once in a while. Yeah,
well, especially when it comes to like the feminine masculine component of, and when I say that, I know everybody has a different thing and we don't have enough time to go through what all that means, but from an embodiment standpoint, the masculine is stillness. It is poise, it is still, it is reserved, it is aware and present. And then the feminine side of that is the creativity, it's the flow, it's the movement, it's the chaos, right? And so you have these different dynamics. Now, I don't necessarily look at that as right brain, left brain, but when you're saying that, Lucille, like when I am in leadership mode and I'm leading a call, for instance, I'm in my masculine. I'm making sure that we are out on time, that I'm present with each person's thoughts, that I'm holding the container. I'm creating the space in the container. I'm leading the call. So anybody that's in a profession, and I don't know if you still work, Lucille, but when you're in that mode, you are in your masculine ego mode, because if you don't, then things don't get done. And that's okay. But I don't think that it's that you can't still be aware and you still can't be in that place of like presence. I think that it can be combined. I think you can do that from a place of presence. And some of the most amazing leaders that I've worked with, clearly, like that's why they have built so much buy-in and trust with their organization, is because they can do that simultaneously, which is not easy, right? But taking time for stillness is that it's your ability. The more that you do it, the more that when you are in a contentious conversation with your spouse, for instance, you're able to attune to what you need to in order to make the conversation to even 10% easier, because you're so aware of what's going on, and you can call in that right brain, like you're saying, into a moment where it is a little bit more fear-based, logistical, what's going on here, critical, that type of thing, if that makes sense. I mean, I use Insight Timer on a regular basis. It's an app. There's so much that you can do in there. My God. I like to look at a flame. So I light a candle and I will meditate like watching a flame. So I think it's good to do open eyes, closed eyes meditation. I mean, I've been meditating for a long time, so I do a lot of movement practice, like moving meditation. And that's with music. And one thing that's really, really sharpened my emotional intelligence beyond what I can even express is something that my coach in the embodiment space had us do, that I continue to do today, which is I choose three songs that elicit a particular emotion. So there's rage, a particular song where I just feel rageful, I feel angry. One that elicits sadness, and one that elicits joy and playfulness. And so I play those songs in whatever order I need to. And what it did for me was allow me to move and meditate and feel sadness. And when the song is over, I have to shift into joy. It's not as easy as you think. It takes a second, but I allow the song to move through me in my feminine to actually feel the emotion, let the sadness go, and move on to the joy. And so when we talk about moving and like what meditation does for you in that instance, whether it's moving or in that place, is you are shifting up that emotional scale as you sit for longer and longer in quiet. You quiet the mind or you release emotion. But that helped me to move through emotions, because I'll never forget my coach saying to me, Trish, you're bleeding out. Some people are just, I have this emotional side to me where I like to sit in the sadness, and it's not always a bad thing until I've been sitting in it for too long and I couldn't get out of it. And she was like, you are bleeding out. I need you to be able to shift. You need to choose to shift. So that is a practice that she gave me that has worked wonders.
No, Molly's driving, but do you want to add anything, Molly?
Just listening. Thank you guys. This is really great.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I'm glad you
Yeah,
can.
thank you all for this conversation.
Absolutely.
Really good stuff. Well organized, Trisha. Thank you so much for that
Of course.
thoughtful
Yes, thanks,
condensing.
Trisha. That was nice.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being participatory.
Any other parting comments you want to make, Trisha?
No, I'm just really grateful for the opportunity for the group. I think it's great to learn and grow, and I'm newer to the area, so it's been really nice to meet people around, even though it's remote. I still have met many of you through pickleball and other things, so it's been fun. Um, I admire just your approach to this call, because it's very open. It allows new thought to come in, right? And that's brilliant. So thank you.
Well, I love how you kept us on track. We hope to do this again on the second Saturday, and it'll be a different link. But if you have suggestions for speakers or topics, a couple people have expressed interest. I think it's January 13th, if I'm not mistaken. not January, September, whatever that date is, 13th and hope to see some of you next week if you're available.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a
Bye-bye.
lot, Trisha. That's a great
Yeah,
job.
thank you.
Good to see you, Lucille.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Molly.